seating wise.
Yeah.
Would have a nice little kitchen on the side. No, I was not. It was just in general.
We always put the camera directly pointing at me on that computer.
Well, all right,
Here.
on that.
Are we
Let's
rolling right
call
now?
the meeting to order.
Yes.
Okay, call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. To item 1B, audience introductions. We want to start here, Jade, with you, and we'll just go that way around the room.
I'm Jade Oakley. Tori Bowling, Melissa Gibson, Alex Graber.
Kirk Fairchild.
Thank you. All right, move to item 2, approval of agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
I did want to make sure I said one thing for the board action. We don't have the items on there for signing the contract today because Rebecca has not gotten back to us. Cindy had submitted it 2 weeks ago, a little over 2 weeks or 2 weeks, right about 2 weeks, but
Afternoon that we finished negotiations.
yeah, so she had finished it that day and sent it and we just haven't heard back yet. So we'll go ahead and call her tomorrow and then for the May meeting, we'll just change the date on what we had and change it to the May meeting date and have you folks vote on it at that time.
Thank you. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Delegation of visitors. This is for visitors or patrons' comments pertaining to items on the agenda for the current meeting for which they are desired to give board input. Such unplanned comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Maximum of 30 minutes total discussion time. Board policy requires school staff to channel communication through the superintendent prior to the board. Okay?
Nobody wants to talk?
Okay. All right, we'll move to item 4, items for permission from the board. We'll do the superintendent report first.
Sure. We just talked about this, the fourth quarter, right now is upon us, the race to the finish line has begun, with spring sports in full swing and the state testing window now open. Our students and staff are sprinting towards the finish line and hoping, hopefully putting their best foot forward as they finish up on a high note. So, and we have had various groups are very busy with college and career related field trips. I'll talk a little bit more about this here in a while, but, we had students that went with Mr. Fairchild last week on the 15th on tax day to the Knife River Training Center, where instead of just a smaller group like we had earlier this year, we actually had our group with a bunch of other students from other various high schools. And we'll talk more about that and that opportunity that they had here later. But our staff also took a bus with the students to Shemakada to look at health careers with dental assisting and nursing programs. And we received some pictures back that day and a group text saying, this is amazing. That was from Margaret, who had taken the students there and the 2 different ones that they had. Obviously, if you're looking at becoming an RN, that's going to be a longer process. The dental assistant will be shorter, but there are some other health careers and other nursing avenues that wouldn't be as long as an RN. But we have a lot of students in the past few years that have had some health science interest, and when we're looking at both those types of opportunities and the other opportunity with Knife River, again, we're trying to meet the needs of a variety of students, and those jobs are, definitely high wage, high demand jobs that are out there, good opportunities for our kids. We're starting to plan for class offerings for next year. So this next week, once we have our science trip kids back, we'll do our student interest forum so they can talk about, again, careers that they're looking towards as they graduate, but then also interests that they may have instead of just careers. They may have something else that meets their interests that they would like to see us hopefully offer. I think we have a variety of talents with our staff that we can hopefully meet some of those. One of those is actually Margaret. I'll speak to her again. She's finishing up her licensure program with Oregon State, actually. She's going to be able to teach vet tech classes. She actually met with the gentleman at OD that oversees a lot of that, and he had said, "Oh yeah, you're set. You can actually do it." So she's been cataloging those hours in addition to taking some of the classes at OSU. And she's finishing that up and looking like she's gonna be able to do some animal science, which we already have somebody that can do that, but also some of the vet tech classes, because she had 15 years at the vet clinic beforehand. And so we'll look at her maybe doing one class per year, but rotate those through so our students can look towards some of the vet tech items or veterinary medicine that they've had interest for, that they had interest in the past. So couple that with some of the other items we're already doing, I think this is great and a great way to go for our kids as they look for the future. And then we, our goal is to have everything done by Memorial Day weekend. That way we can have time for Stacy in the office to plug it in for next year and start looking at if we have to make some decisions to modify some of the offerings. Our Pirate Sounds group in grades 3 through 5, and the middle and elementary school band were able to entertain the fine folks at Capitol Manor. And then, like I said, there's a longtime activities director there, Linda, that Ms. Matthews has worked with and our kids have interacted with for 2 decades. They gave her a little bit of pirate year as a farewell gift as she moves on to the next chapter. She probably would have rather had a Conditorai cake, but she got a Perrydale shirt instead, so it's all right. We appreciate her as a true partner and giving us that opportunity for our kids to go in there and work with Capitol Manor. They're happy to have us there, but at the same time, it's nice that we get that invitation and they look forward to having us. So thank you to her and Capitol Manor. And our elementary and middle school students also have a plethora of year-end field trips planned over the next 2 months. We definitely understand, as a former teacher, you're trying to look to that, cumulative event that you're doing at the end of the school year. But at the same time, boy, our buses get a lot of action that month of May and June. So we have the zoo coming up for some of our classes. Mr. Dieters does this historical Aurora field trip, outdoor school, our 8th grade trip. And then our students, have a wide variety of opportunities, not just with some of the other items I talked about with like Knife River, Chemeketa, but our elementary and middle school students do too. Again, a lot of schools have outdoor school, but the fact that we do this 8th grade trip is pretty unique. We aren't doing a 7th grade trip again yet, but maybe down the road we will, but we don't want it to put too much on all their plates. So it's a lot to ask when they're gone for a week each, that's for sure. And then our athletic teams have begun league play and sports with the middle school and high school level. Like I said, talking about last Saturday was the Perrydale track meet. That was about 3 weeks earlier than normal, but we had to work around the schedule for the people that come and do the timing. There's only a couple of groups that do that. We have a really good relationship with the company that comes out right now. They love our meet. They love us. We love them, and we want to keep that relationship going because Debbie is a really good person to know because of her connections, not only with track, but also volleyball. So she's the official Grand Poobah for officials for volleyball in the state. But yeah, we look forward to many more meets to come. We're already talking about dates for next year, and especially with the expansion now that we have middle school track as well. So PPC auction at Chemeketa Yola Winery on May 3rd. And the plant sale is actually the 7th and 8th. I screwed up. I thought it was Friday, Saturday. She wanted to attack that parent after school crowd that was very successful for her. So McKenna definitely understands her clientele better than I do. So they went with May 7th and 8th. So please go out there and check it out. The sooner you get there on the 7th, the better, because we definitely will sell a lot of the plants, and usually, last year we sold out, and we have some really great plants. So excited, yeah.
I'll be out of town, and I've already given my husband direct
Yes.
instructions as to what I want. You better be there.
You need to hand out bracelets. I have
Yeah.
bracelets for those person. So, but yeah, pretty great. And then they had to go take care of some business, so I told Chrissy I'd go ahead and go on to the elementary and middle school report if that's okay.
Yeah.
So Literacy Night was a great success. A big thank you to Mrs. Paya, Mrs. Brittany Matthews, and the elementary staff for coordinating, hosting such a fun and engaging event for our families. And Pirate Sounds and Middle School Band recently visited Capitol Manor, which I had talked about. And then Pirate Sounds also held a special performance for their families and community. Middle school has officially wrapped up Q3. Great work to them, and they had a rewards day last Thursday as well. It's not the one they look forward to more in the spring where they get to go to Bullwinkles and before we used to do Oaks Park, but they enjoy those trips like that as well for
We
rewards.
toggle back and forth.
Yeah, but Dan didn't say anything bad about you. So,
I'm listening.
so sixth grade outdoor school is just around the corner. Thank you to Ms. Sullivan and Ms. Shore for the incredible coordination of this meaningful event, which relies on the support of both adult and high school volunteers. Ms. Shore is still helping out a little bit this year. She just got her cast off as well. So she's, I'm sure, really looking forward to traversing the grounds
We're
there.
getting her a golf cart.
What's that?
We're getting her a golf cart.
That's what I heard, a golf cart. So, well, it wasn't me, it was the other bus.
Oh,
Yeah, okay.
I think I
That's what I'm sticking with. So,
Juvenile.
that was a different one, yeah.
Student behind at Oaks Park.
Oh, yeah.
You were in school probably around that
My
time.
sister, I think it was there.
It was your sister.
No.
No.
Wasn't the one that had this, wasn't,
I was her.
it wasn't class.
So, better than when I left them behind and
Right, right.
Demands.
I wasn't gonna say that one.
that was the other bus driver, that was his parent. So, and then we're excited for the upcoming auction like we talked about. Thank you to those longtime members. We have some that are retiring this year, and this is their swan song, and their time and commitment is going to be sorely missed as well. So, all right.
Okay.
And we don't have the special ed department this month. She was gone last week, so.
All right, so any questions on the facilities report or anything you wanted to add about that?
I just want to comment, we have been waiting, and Troy's been working on it, but we now have up on the stage, we turned one of the rooms into a mom's room. We have 4 moms that either just had babies or are going to be having babies, so that way they can, have time to do any type of pumping that they may need to do. So we're putting a vanity in there, sink in there as well. And then we have 3 chairs that they can use, and then we have some side tables, et cetera. So,
Refrigerator.
and a refrigerator that they can put their product in. So I want to thank Troy for working on that, but it's definitely been something we wanted to do. And now we have a dedicated space for it, so it's great.
Okay, move to item 4B, spotlight on education.
Yeah, so actually, some of the items we're gonna talk a little bit during board action, but we have Mr. Kirk Fairchild here, one of the 2 members of our CTV program. Earlier today, the Mid-Willamette Education Consortium, which is our partners with our Perkins dollars through Shemeketa, so they are with Shemeketa, but kind of a separate entity. Their director, Ed Woods, was here taking a tour of the school and, just interacting with them on some of the things that they're currently doing, some of the things they're looking to do in the future. Like I said, we were also talking with a gentleman from ODE about, adding NAGI into the schedule potentially with our vet tech items as well. And just some of the things that they're doing overall and presenting those opportunities. Again, looking at some that are more hands-on, but also some that, again, if we have somebody that ends up being a vet, obviously that is a high wage, high demand. We have a lot of kids that have expressed interest in that career field in the past, and I'm glad we're able to offer that. But one of the items that Kirk has brought to us with is switch over from Oakland to here, but his expertise and experience there at Oakland and at Embler is using the CNC machine, and that's been a thorn in our side. Previous years with electricity, we have a setup for it. The one thing that's disappointing is that the machine's so dated that the software was kaput and we couldn't really operate that. So Kirk's been working on that. He has a metals class with welding. He has the wood shop. We have middle school that's doing some wood shop stuff. In fact, we have a middle school that's going to help build the cover for the high jump pads. We're going to have to get some high jump pads. They're in their budget for 25-26. So they're actually building a cover with tin and stuff to put over those pads as well. So, we have some good things going on with our CTE program. Floriculture, you see the vase with the flowers right there in front of Jade. Some got pigs. I ended up with a cow myself, but I'm regretting that a little bit. I do like pig quite a bit, but no, we're trying to give some kids again these opportunities. So Kirk's, we're gonna talk a little bit later about the ArcLight and some of the other quotes that we had. But if you want to kind of talk about not just maybe your shop, but what your opportunity at Knife River and what that kind of entailed for the students last week.
Yeah, going back to Knife River, it was a phenomenal experience. We were lucky enough to take 13 kids. Unfortunately, some other schools backed out, which meant we could take some more. So I asked for more spots, and they happily said yes. The students, when we got there, found out that if they get hired on at Knife River, they will be paid $25 an hour for the first month to go through training. So they will get paid to go through their training at a state-of-the-art facility. They got to run some excavators while we were there, go through some foreman activities to learn what that would be like to be a foreman, most of which found out that they would be terrible foremen because they don't like to communicate with that many other people. They would rather operate the equipment. They were told about the opportunities to transfer if they requested around the U.S., mostly Midwest through Hawaii, that region, and how if they cross-trained in equipment, they could be making $30 an hour by the time they're 19. Well, there was one other thing. They top out at $50 an hour at Knife River. So students, by the time they're 15 years in, could be making $50 an hour, and even potentially training others at their training facility. So it was a pretty cool opportunity for the kids to be able to go. Definitely piqued some interest in some of the students that are more keen to blue collar jobs when they leave, and they definitely are giving Knife River a thought now because it's a great opportunity and Knife River's expanding.
So with the students, yeah, I know that we thought it may be around 15, end up being 13.
Yeah.
I know you had more boys than girls, but you had some representation of both.
Yeah.
Boys and girls, which I thought was great. So I don't know if you want to share a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, we took 3 ladies, 2 of which don't really know what they want to do after they graduate. They know that college really is for them, but they're excited for whatever the future holds. One of which is kind of shy and doesn't really like talking to a whole lot of people. She realized that sitting in a piece of heavy machinery, not having to talk to people, making $30 an hour sounds pretty nice. So that right there, I think sold her. Another one is very much a grease monkey, loves to get her hands dirty and loves to work hard. And finding out she can work hard while sitting in AC sounded pretty awesome also. So I think the girls were almost more sold than some of the boys who, they got to work with their hands. Well, Knife River very kindly told them that if they decide to go work with their hands right off the bat, they're probably making minimum wage as opposed to $25 an hour. So,
Yeah, piggybacking off that, the day that they went to Chemeketa, and they came back in the office after the field trip for the health science one, that we have a senior who was kind of uncertain about what they were going to do and was very, very excited about the opportunity that she had with the dental assistant. And she actually filled out the information for the program and was all smiles in the office and was talking with the teacher. And I sent a text to that teacher later on and just said, you had one of those moments essentially where you get it. You know, that's the type of moment when you see that kind of gleeful excitement that's in the student's eyes. I mean, it kind of clicked. Yeah, there's 2 months to go until their senior year's over, but it was a really great thing. And those are the opportunities, whether it was the, folks that went with him or the student that had that opportunity. That was really great. But I saw that excitement look in her eye, but I also saw it in the teacher's eye. And so Margaret, that was her first opportunity as a teacher or somebody that was taking that field trip to have that experience. And I made that comment too, that I could see that excitement in her face as well. So it was really a neat experience to see that as they came back and recognize that. So again, just seeing those types of opportunities has been great. And then they had state convention between now and the last meeting we had. And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that. It seems like a long time ago.
Forever ago. We had a great state convention. Over in the boys' house, we had 5 boys go with us, none of which had ever been. In fact, up to that point, I would say none of them had been like super active in our FFA chapter. They were interested and kind of borderline, but hadn't dove fully in. So it was pretty cool to see a bunch of students that really started to connect, not with just each other, but realizing that they're part of a bigger organization than just Little Perrydale. When they get around 2,000 other FFA members, it was pretty cool to see. We had a farm business management team, which placed 13th out of 31 or 32 teams. McKenna was able to coach that one. The kids did phenomenal. They were disappointed that when they found out they were 13th until they found out that there were over 30 teams. Then they were pretty proud. Otherwise, the kids came away with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of them realizing that they can do more than just be who they are at Little Perrydale. Even while here at Little Perrydale, they can start to grow themselves into future leaders, really.
And we have one gentleman who's a senior right now, who had never done any FFA events until the last 2 months and said, oh, fine, I'll go do it. And Kirk and McKenna were able to talk him into doing it. And I was able to talk with his mom, who's very into the farming world. And she was excited that her son did it. And I told her, I'd like to see her son go into the middle school classrooms as we're promoting middle school FFA and high school FFA. And when Kirk and McKenna go and talk to the students, I'd like for him to go in there, at least one or two of the classes, and talk about, I didn't think that this was a program for me, but now that I did it, I wish I would have done it a long time ago. And I actually had that gentleman come up to me last week on Wednesday, I think it was, and said, hey, I talked to my mom, and she said that you had said that. I said, yeah, I know that may not be your thing, but I would love to see you possibly do that. And he actually said, you know what, I think I can do that. I think that would be a good thing. So to have him be willing to go in there and say, hey, you know what, I had this, I wish I would have done a lot sooner. There's some really cool things that are happening. I thought that would be really great. So to have that gentleman who's not normally outgoing like that say, yeah, I'll go talk to these classes and tell them I wish I would have done it sooner, that was pretty cool.
One thing to add on to there was he actually ended up buying his own jacket and paying the rush delivery so he could have it for state convention. That's how much that's how excited he is. So pretty cool.
So anyway, good stuff. You folks are doing great things. And, again, as a smaller school, we have obviously had sports and we've always had FFA stuff, but to see the kids really be involved with that is really great. It teaches them a lot of great opportunities. And I know some of you had done that stuff in the past, and I wish more kids saw the value in those things moving forward. And now with our college and career advancements we've made, a lot of it with dedicated funding, obviously from the state, helped make it happen. But there's some really cool things for kids out there. It's not just Perrydale, I know that, but I am grateful that we've moved that way compared with where we were 15, 20 years ago. So it's a good thing. So that's it.
Thank you. I will move to item 4C, new hires and resignations.
Yeah, so our first one that we have on there, actually, Chrissy, if you want to talk about our new second grade teacher for next year.
Yeah, so, okay. Callie Dorfler, and it's pronounced Dorfler, it's spelled a little bit funny, so if you're not sure, it's Dorfler. She comes to us from Ash Creek Elementary. She's been there for 6 years, teaching kindergarten and first grade. She just completed her master's in reading, so we'll be able to benefit from her reading endorsement, her ESOL endorsement, and her experience as a K-1 teacher as well. So we're pretty excited to add her to our crew.
And that science of reading, the science reading items I was talking about earlier, the curriculum.
It's a heavy
Curriculum that-
focus on phonics.
And she had
At the K-1
focused
too.
on that as well, I believe, in that program with their masters. So excited about having her here. So, and then the other one we have is Michael Connor, our new PE teacher. He actually has 11 years experience. He's coming to us from the Quinville High School and was at Corvallis School District and Central School District prior to that. As I had said in the email, was also an instructional assistant in the Salem Kaiser School District in a resource room setting. And, we think he's going to be able to do a lot of things, has a lot of background in 3 varsity sports at the 5A, 6A level, and also middle school, and work with younger kids through camps, et cetera, as well. One of the things that one of his references said was, "Oh, this person's a longtime teacher," and they felt like they learned a lot from Mike, especially with how he's got the kids excited for different aspects of the high school PE, specifically the weight room, and some of the advancements they've made in there with the physical activity that they have going on in there. And that's one of his areas of expertise. So a lot of background with athletics, been coaching for 18 years. Dad was a longtime coach, got a chance to coach under a lot of high quality coaches that are very reputable in this area throughout the
Where's
valley.
he from?
He grew up in Central School District, and so he worked with both Shane and also with Jay Minyard. And coached with both of them on their programs in addition to that coach up in Mac right now.
So what other sports does he have?
Golf and baseball.
Okay.
Yeah, so a little variety there. Coach girls and boys of baseball. I mean, not baseball, golf.
Golf.
Yeah.
And he's aware of how many hats.
Yeah, he actually came and did a tour of the school and shadowed G before we actually had the job posted, because he knew it was gonna be coming open, and so he wanted to come and see what was going on. So he got a chance to see what would that look like, because it would be different, and then had a chance to think about whether or not it was a good fit, and thought it would be a really good fit for him, so.
Yeah. There's not as many prep periods and
Yeah, well,
it's-
yeah.
you wear a lot of hats and that.
Well, there's a lot more prep, but yeah, because there's so many different.
Right, there's so much to do, yeah.
So,
Does he have any experience in the modified?
yeah, so he's worked not only in that resource room setting, but he also has had students in his classes that have been on IEPs that have had to do some changes with
Modified and
modified
adaptive.
curriculum. Yeah, adaptive.
Adaptive PE.
So,
Great.
We'll move to item 5, consent agenda. Do I have a motion on that?
I'll move the consent agenda. I will second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Move to item 6, items for the board. A, 2025-2027 integrated guidance.
that's thank you, Katie, for being bouncer around her. I'm gonna make sure I pass one to you two also, so unless I think I have enough, maybe I'll have one.
Oh,
Yeah,
Wait,
So
no,
Jenny-
there's 3 more to go.
yeah. So,
No, there were 3 there, I think. There's 3 in there. To keep on going around.
You do one, are we one short still? Melissa, if I have an extra, oh, you already have one?
I
Okay,
don't have copies.
Yep, I think everyone has one.
okay.
Yeah.
Great, so, so this here are integrated programs, I do have it on a slideshow, I can do that, or we can just go off this, it's up to you. Okay, so with this here. So the 25 through 27, and a lot of it's gonna be similar to what we have now, but there's some different, definite changes. Last time we did this 2 years ago, they had 6 areas that we were looking at, that is now expanded into 9. So one of which we don't have to follow, which is, if you look on the 4th slide, so on the 2nd page, you'll see the brown area, which says federal school improvement for comprehensive targeted supports. We don't qualify for that. That's schools that have specific targeted items that they need to reach. So I tried to color coordinate the rest of them with their items with what we see on the or the chart there on the 4th slide. But the background again, the reason why they did the integrated programs, a lot of us throughout the state, as districts, we said, threw our hands up and said, this is getting to be unbearable, because a lot of the same things that we were reporting on for one program was the same as another program, or very similar. And so what they came back with was, okay, if you guys complete all of this on one bigger application process, then what we'll do is that will count for a lot of different areas. So one of the things we used to have to do was called the continuous improvement plan. And that was a bear of a notebook that we had to do every 4 years. And now with doing this program every 4 years, then we reassess after 2 years of the 4-year segment. That actually counts for that first one, which is that SIP plan that you see on slide 5. And it talks about how districts are called upon to engage in that. It took out the ORS because it talked about the ORS needs.
He was holding it in for so long, I think.
That was Christie for a second, because she's not in there. It was like, there's no way that's Christie. So anyway, this, I integrated programs now, it used to be called integrated guidance, fulfills that requirement. So that has been nice. So even though it's in there, it's very nice to be able to do one plan. We get a lot of support from the ESD, specifically lady named Sarah, that is our liaison. I've come to really appreciate Sarah and the help that the support that she helps us with and provides for us, which is really great. Everyday Matters is something that the ESDs do with us. We're gonna look into doing more of this next year, which is about regular attenders and getting that attendance. You know, for the most part, our kids have good attendance, but we have some that we can improve upon. Some of them ended up moving out of districts, you know, to other schools, et cetera, but we have some, our families, we want to try to definitely make sure we get more attendance from, you know, some in our school community, and we're hoping that utilizing some of the Everyday Matters items next year and working with our ESD on that will be more beneficial. We do not really get any money for that. So the continuous improvement plan, the Everyday Matters, those are things that we get support, you know, on those from the ESD or the state, but we don't actually get dedicated funding just for that. Same with the career and connected learning on the next page. It's just a requirement that the state has. Again, they understand the importance of trying to address the skill gaps and provide opportunities for all students, like we talked about, high demand careers. They're starting to put money towards that again, very appreciative of that. And so instead of having to do separate, you know, a separate write-up for all of that, we're able to do everything at one time. Where we start getting into money and budget items is for the high school success. Largely that's help fund Margaret's position. It was April's before that, but we're able to do some other things with our field trips for college and career readiness, but I'm not gonna read all of it, but you can see what the goal is of the HSS. That was through a ballot measure called Ballot Measure 98 that was passed about, oh heck, it's been almost 10 years, a little less than a decade ago. But that allowed us to have that person that really was kind of a, what we used to call a guidance counselor back in the day. And that was a position that we had been missing here at Perryville. I, you know, look back to a couple of you across the table, we didn't really have that position when we folks were here. And, you know, Hutch did his things, and, you know, we had some stuff we tried to do with Mrs. Rucksager with scholarships, et cetera, but largely we were missing the mark on that as a district because we didn't have a dedicated time put in the schedule for that with some people. So one of Margaret's jobs, amongst others, is that she works with students on that college to career readiness, but she works closely with Kirk and McKenna and some others and myself in order to try to make sure that we have some of those opportunities for kids. Because we realize that not all kids are going to go to a four-year college, but we promote that. We promote two-year opportunities, but also other things like with Knife River to try to make sure that we get the variety of our students, you know, opportunities to see what may be out there for them. So. And then the next one, the SIA, that is our biggest account of funding that we get from the grant. The SIA has been extremely helpful for districts, especially ours. I have said to ODE, there's a lot of things that, you know, you get concerned about reporting or the funding coming from this or that, but the SIA grant and the HSS grant are two things that as a smaller district, we could not have really invested in without this extra money. So there's a CAT tax that a lot of people are frustrated with from the business owners, but that is what funds the SIA. So while I understand that, I am appreciative that that money is at least dedicated for some of these other programs and items that we have been able to do. And so you can see it talks about mental health or behavioral needs, increased academic achievement for students, including reducing academic disparities, but it also gives students opportunities for more in-depth educational opportunities. So other classes that they may take that maybe they didn't have before. So for example, Kirk has a forestry class. We haven't done forestry. We have floriculture, we've done plant science, but not really horticulture, floriculture like we're doing now. Some of the science classes that we offer, we had already invested in a separate math and science teacher years ago now, but we're able to offer some of these, criminal justice science classes or I can't think of the word, CSI type classes that, our science teachers, thank you, forensics.
Welcome.
Thank you. Forensics classes that our kids are able to take. Just a lot of opportunities for our students to be able to do that. So the SIA has been really helpful with that. And I'll go over to what we fund with those positions as well. So right now with SIA, we fund 2 elementary instructional assistants. We fund our K-8 math specialists, and we fund Kirk and all the programs that he does. In addition to some supplies for CTE, and even a little bit with our college and career staff. Our early indicator, the next one, we don't get very much money. I think it was $900 this year. So I didn't really put that on the funding on the back, but you can see what some of that has to do with trying to look at building those relationships, making sure you get kids the support they need, getting them here at school, and seeing how we can make those improvements in the classroom and at the district level. So, and then the next one there, early literacy, like I told you, that's jumping up to $134,000 this next year. So that's a huge investment that the state's making. And then our CTE, that is a different funding system, so I didn't include it also. But those dollars actually come through the ESD and through the Mid-Willamette Education Consortium where that gentleman was from today. So there's a lot of different funding streams that we get this that are impacted by this integrated programs. And then you can see the funding on that next page. It's primary funding for the programs, high school success. That actually is going up 6%. SIA actually went down just a little bit, 0.4%, but still a healthy sum of money. And then our early literacy went up significantly by 205%.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a big increase there. So yeah, you can see what we're looking at proposing for funding. That's in our budget that we just worked on earlier today. Our licensed math specialists, 2 classified instructional assistants, 1 licensed CT instructor over there, and some of our CT materials. And some of that included also trying to expand our middle school FFA offering as well. And then proposed high school budget primarily funds the following: our student success person, who's Maggie this year and into next year. And then next year she'll also have her CT license, like we had talked about with vet tech and animal science, and also fund some of our career related field trips. And then our early literacy budget, we just talked about, we're proposing that at other 0.5 FTE. And again, this is looking towards the future. That's why we talked about proposed budget. Licensed literacy specialist, 1 classified IA focusing on early literacy, and kindergarten jumpstart program. Again, we had budgeted for the licensed literacy. That's not necessarily saying it has to be that, but that is what we budgeted for. So that's why we put it that way on this as well. And then how the state understands success. This is what they gauge us on and what they look at. Some of these are going to look very familiar when we talk about progress markers. That'll be on the next page. But they want to make sure we have a well-rounded education, that we're providing opportunities for all students, like we were talking about here at the table earlier, and making sure we have the engaged school community. It doesn't mean just the Prairie Dog community. It means students, it means parents, it means people in our general area, it means our staff. So it means a variety of people in our school community. And then also district systems capacity, and you can see some of the other things with performance, et cetera. So they'll look at those items. They help us write goals. They're the ones who are the grand poobah of that. With the purse strings come the ultimate decision making sometimes. But on the last part, you'll see how they come up with some of those goals are the things that we've talked about at the board meeting before. With our 3rd grade reading proficiency rates measured by ELA, which is again that investment in literacy and early literacy. The green area that you see after that is sort of the teal areas, the 9th grade on track, regular attendance. That's actually for everybody's regular attendance. the 4-year on-time graduation and the 5-year completion, those are high school related. And then the other thing, maybe other metrics that may be used locally. So that is our program, what our main funding sources are, and then the items that we're proposing for this next year. Again, we understand the budget committee still has to work on that. But that's what we have. A lot of it's similar to what we have been doing, but then also modifying that with our literacy person as well, and continue to instead of working on funding, building that other rest of the CTE lab that we had scrolled away. Then we had, some of our items, because it doesn't do any good to have a shop class if we don't have the materials that they need to do that. And that, that's pretty expensive. Some schools charge quite a bit for their kids to take shop classes. We have not gone to that model. We have been able to fund that through some of our other streams. And so we want to continue to be able to do that. So I think that's it. I do need a board action on this. They would, yeah.
So what's the piece that says public input?
So we need to make sure that if there's any public here, they have any questions or concerns that, stuff that they've heard here tonight, that they can ask those questions. And probably need that prior to vote, so that's a good point. So we want to make sure that we open that up at this meeting. There's two other staff members and 3 community members here. 2 of you of which have students already at the school, 1 will in the future. So, we'd love to hear if you have any questions on any of this. It's a lot to digest, I know. And it came to us originally in different segments, but now it's all one thing. And it seems burdensome or over, like it's a huge deal, but in the long run, it's been better that they convinced me for reporting purposes.
This is also good for district leadership.
Yeah.
For the district leadership team, and board goals, being in one place like this. Yeah.
Anybody have?
This little graph inside, is that just an example or is
That's
that? Okay, that's what I was thinking, but I wasn't sure. since
Yeah, that's
the
a
slide
historic,
before,
yeah,
I
that's
don't
not
know.
from us. That is just an example from the state, yeah.
Okay.
So are we gonna make our own, are you making?
So the longitudinal performance growth targets, that's what they help us draft after we submit that you folks are approving that we are asking for this with our plan. So this is what we're asking for with our plan. That's what our budgeted money is going towards. That's why I want to make sure I put that on there. That this is what we're shooting for with the funds available. Looking at what we have with needs with our math, needs with early literacy, expand those opportunities for kids with a well-rounded education, and making sure that we look to address if we need to, like with the literacy part. PE is not necessarily going to be in there. It could be for some electives and well-rounded items, but also making sure we have those PE minutes. We didn't include it in this because we didn't have that funded through here.
And we don't have any math in this.
The math, K-8 math specialist. That is under SIA. So our licensed math specialist.
Okay.
Yeah.
And 2,
And two IAs.
instructional
And
assistants.
2 A's.
So this really will help you guys with, your district leadership team and board goals, once this is, you know what I mean?
As far as educational materials, we have still used that through our regular general fund dollars. We know we're gonna have to buy different curriculum each year. So we did not put our curriculum in that. In the past, we've utilized this for that because we had a need for that, but this year we have social studies already budgeted out to look at buying that adoption. In fact, we're a little bit ahead of that because they really don't. Social studies doesn't really start until that next year, so we can, at this time next year, we can have social studies being purchased. So we have it ready for the next year, so we're getting it not August, 25th for the teachers, and they're supposed to start teaching it, a week later.
Right.
So this way they have the curriculum over the summer.
So how many FTE on your plan are not current? How many are
Just
there?
the 0.5 licensed .5 FTE licensed literacy.
That's the,
That's the only one that's not currently already in the budget, or that's already not current with these funds.
So I'm supportive of like the plan. And then can you talk more about, so we adopt the funding plan tonight, and then you go back to Department of Ed, and then they give you the targets?
And then they help you make the target growth, and then we report this back to the
Okay.
board.
what if we don't like the term?
That's my question is, like, I assume a lot of these are just based on state standards.
They would look at
but-
that, disaggregated data is what they would base a
Okay.
lot of it off of.
But is there some adjustments that we can make on
Yes.
this? Okay.
We can always go to them and say, hey, this is what they're saying. We can always go to them and say, here's what our board has concerns with. You know, can we work with you guys? And I would say they'd be pretty accommodating. They've always been pretty good in the past of working with us on items that we have, not just specifically this, but just in general. And we were talking about it earlier, Cindy's daughter Ed and Aaron and I, there's times where, you know, ODE reaches out to us, and there are times where we felt like we worked really well with them. I'm not saying there's not some items with ODE that don't concern us, you know, at this table, but there's been some good stuff and good relationship stuff that we've been able to have, specifically with this. They have supported our program this last time and didn't put things that, I would say that their expectations, they try to make it very attainable. So like for improvement on math scores, they say, okay, if you're at 30%, you're not gonna get to 95% by the next year, so don't be ridiculous and say that. Here's what the highest performing 10 schools have increased by this much. You know, let's keep it in that ballpark as far as you can improve by about this much. And that will vary on which subject area or how often. Now, this just started in the last 2 years, right? So this is the second time that we would look at doing that. But I have not heard a lot of districts say that they were very displeased with anything that they had with their LPGTs. There's a lot of acronyms in this.
And then what are the ramifications if you don't make the targets?
So if you don't make the targets, then you may have some type of targeted assistance down the road. If you don't try to follow it at all, I mean, they can pull funding, I would suppose, but you have an agreement that you say that okay, we're gonna try to work towards these items in order to get those the funding stream. You can say we don't want to do it and then just not take that funding.
Yeah.
I don't know of any district that's done that, but there has been.
So back to, there isn't, these little bullet points on the targets, these are what, they'll help you set the metrics.
That's what they'll look at.
So again, back to that, you don't have any targets for math.
So no, one of those items that we would actually look at our math. And so they would say, okay, if your math is one of those areas, they would say, okay, yeah, your math is here, here's where it needs to be. So math could be one
It could be.
that they look at, yeah. They'll look at all the data points and say, okay, here's where we are. So what?
So we're not limited to these bullet points, it might come back, okay.
And when do you think the timing is on getting these?
So that would probably be in June.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Do we have any comments? Anybody have any questions? Is there anything online?
No.
Nobody's online? Okay, I move that we approve the 2025-27 integrated guidance.
Integrated program, integrated guidance. So,
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item B, CNC machine.
So as I was, this quote was, or these quotes were in your packet. So we have, our gentleman here with his background that wanted to do the CNC and has experience with the plasma cutting systems. We had one that was given to us a long time ago by the MLEC program that's, is not compatible with some of the software that's available. We just aren't able to use that machine according to Kurt. You can speak to it better than I can. So I'll let you kind of talk about that if possible.
So I have fought that machine for months. I was ecstatic to come back, fire that up and get going. The computer does not want to cooperate with me. So I called ArcLight Dynamics, the company that owns it, and said, hey, how about we get a new computer? And the salesman said, well, let me call you back on that. So he called me back and said, the table has its own software and the computer has software. They have to update together. And our software is so old that he could not find anyone in the state that still has the software to update with it. So he also reminded me that his goal is to be a salesman, that he wants to make money, and the best way to make money is to get all the kids loving their systems so that they go into industry and tell their employers that they need to get those. So they've actually seen where they give the educational discounts like you're in this, and the students go into industry, and industry will buy 10 of these tables simply because the kids like it. So he reminded me his goal is not to get us to buy a new table. He really wants to save us as much money as possible. Unfortunately, he even called, Dan got a call about a CNC thing from a prison over in Eastern Oregon. That was one of the phone calls actually from ArcLight to see if their systems were similar to what we might currently have. It was not. It was a couple of years updated after ours. So unfortunately, that's kind of where we're sitting at with our table right now.
Remember, we didn't buy that.
No, we didn't buy it, that's right.
Do you want me to go into my advertising why I think this new machine would be awesome for the kids?
Yes, please.
All right, sweet. So I brought a couple examples. During student teaching over in Imbler, of all places, a place where I personally got to lose multiple playoff games.
I was gonna say.
I was not thrilled to go back there until I walked into their program. I had a little bit of experience in CNC machines prior to heading over there. This is 15 minutes of teaching a kid how to use their software. And he actually made this for me as a thank you because he loved it so much he went into the industry to use CNC machines. So this is 15 minutes of teaching, but 2 to 3 days of designing, and then unfortunately the result that the kids all want to watch is the machine working, which to cut this out takes a total of like 5 minutes. So they work for hours and hours on designing something that takes 5 minutes to cut out. So it's pretty awesome from that. Playing around, I mean, you can get pretty detailed. This is not a very detailed image because it's so small, but it looks pretty detailed, even being that small. A couple of things that I think are awesome about a CNC machine. I had a student, my first year teaching down in Oakland, that I told, you need to stand up when you weld. We're getting rid of all the chairs. I want you to cut them up because if you need to sit down to weld, you're replaceable by a machine. He decided to stick it to me after he graduated and go get a job sitting while I welded. He called me 5 months later, said, I was expecting this phone call to be a ha 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 showing you. I just found out yesterday that they're buying 3 machines that will replace me. So he was fortunately capable of running enough machinery that he got to stay on and run some of their equipment from a more computerized approach. On top of that, unfortunately, as the integrated guidance line comes through, we know that funding for schools goes through its ebbs and flows. This is an awesome fundraiser. Trina and I were just talking about this project right here with the steel that it uses, the thickness that it is. We could fundraise a project of this size at about $100, but this is what we'd sell this. And we're making a lot of money there. So we're able to keep our program up, running, and pay for consumables if needed down the road. I'm not saying this would happen as soon as we buy this machine, but it is something that can actually alleviate some funding issues as those slowly come up from the state. On top of that, a project that Brock Ferguson and I have talked about was actually cutting out a periodic table that we could manipulate. So actually cutting one out that would fit on the back wall of this classroom. That he could actually, each individual piece is Velcroed out there. And he could actually take them down and talk about compounds and elements and how they interact with each other and where they're at on the periodic table, and then just go Velcro them back up. The first quote, number 1 right there, is for an ARC Pro. that comes with an engraver. And so we wouldn't actually have to cut it out like this and have a solid background for the kids to really be able to read what that element is. We would just engrave on the front of it, which is pretty awesome. The other quotes that are in here, I forget which order they're in. There's another one from ArcLight Dynamics.
They're kind of less.
So the other ArcLight Dynamics is what they would call their cream of the crop. They think it's pretty awesome. It runs one application to do design, translating, and cutting, which is pretty awesome. Right now, the top quote has to use 3 different applications to get out of 10. After talking to several other ag teachers, shop teachers, and industry professionals, they would actually encourage to stick with the slightly cheaper option, the one that's not the single system. They would prefer the three applications because it's just one more aspect that you can teach the kids on what to use, and one more way of teaching students. So they had actually suggest quote number 1 on this. The other 2 are Torchmate from Lincoln Electric. Lincoln Electric just got into the CNC game. They have phenomenal products out there. I'm not going to badmouth them one bit, but I always question when you just get into the game and you have your first couple models come out. I don't always trust those. So that's why I was steering away from that. Also, Torchmate is the most expensive on there. So also kind of fell short. Plasma Camp is the only other one, and I've only ever heard other instructors curse that machine out. So I have yet to find someone that says something good about that, even though that is the cheapest option. I've been told it's cheaper.
Second.
The
The actual, the least expensive is the first one you said, ArcLight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like.
Oh, I thought Plasma Cam was for some reason. So that is not only the cheapest, but I also think that's actually the most user-friendly for our students from a standpoint of what I know to teach, what I think will benefit the students in the long run, and what will actually help the program fund itself a long ways down the road when the kids actually know what they're doing with it.
But the reality is, we probably at some point have to update technology.
At some
right?
point,
Just like-
but when we get it, I've been running this machine now for 4. This would be year number 5 for me, if we had one running, and so I can keep it updated, which will keep it more relevant for 10, 15 years later than what this would have been. So we can keep that updated pretty well.
And the funding that this would be coming out of is actually some of our SIA CTE funds. So it's actually out of the grant money. We have some still left for supplies to help the amount because we had received some additional money last year that they weren't anticipating. And so as a result, we have that money we're gonna end up utilizing by June 30th. This was a great opportunity, we felt like, to spend that wisely on something that's gonna work, something our teacher had familiarity with, and it would be good for our kids in that system. We already have the hood that's still in there that was there with the original welding area. We also have some electricity that's run, that's a 220 outlet there, and then we do have the compressor, but we'd have to hook that up when they come to set that up. But we did buy that compressor when we remodeled. Actually, we bought that.
The other cool thing about this is this company is actually based out of Bend, Oregon also. They would love to, the guy keeps emailing me because he's excited to hopefully figure out how we can get this for students. And he would love for myself and Dan, if he's willing, to actually come out and do a couple hours of training on the table to make sure that we know all the ins and outs. So they have every model set up with all the bells and whistles to show instructors and other professionals how you do that. And they're always on call, ready to drive right over to Bend or to drive over here to help out. So it's pretty unique to have a company that close.
Which fund is the money in?
And our SIA grant.
It is in
Yeah,
there.
that's yeah. Correct, Cindy? Cindy, we have the funds in our SIA
Yeah.
grant.
And will our math teacher be able to use the CNC for any math classes? What we talked about, you did that training last year so is there the ability for that to overlap and blend with the building and
It could potentially, right now, that class is programmed more towards wood shop
wood shop?
than it is metals, but it may be something that they work on, and I know that they're articulating that together for the next year.
He's also been using the 3D printer that we have. That was also bought out of some grant dollars, if I'm correct. He's been using that to teach himself how to use it so that he can create manipulatives and create different ways of teaching volume areas and all that, which is also housed in my shop. So we've been working together to try to figure that machine out to make it effective with this. So that's another tool that the math teacher has in his pocket to also create manipulatives and construction concepts. So just to throw that out there.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
So we have the 4 bids, and we bid on one of those, you can say no. And then go from there. Again, the thing is, we have stuff in place, let's get this going. I know it's been a bane of the existence, and
How
Hopefully
long are
something I
they
wanna
saying
know.
for delivery and up and running?
2 to 3 weeks for delivery.
And
And I had the pleasant opportunity of troubleshooting Oakland's when I moved it and having to reset it up. So I think I could have it running before the end of the school year. Teaching kids very basic cuts on it, but teaching it. So,
but still, just, yeah. I mean, it's been a long time.
yeah, it has.
yeah,
It's been my route.
as that computer has told me.
He would work with ArcLight to determine what they would do. I don't know if they were gonna take that for us or what the plan was with that.
WESD, when they came through today, saw that it has a tag on it, so they want to make sure that they're consulted first.
Okay.
They don't know what the full legal route would be. All the mechanical parts are still phenomenal on it because it's never been used. So whether that be we keep it and have it for parts, or ArcLight can reprogram it and potentially, hopefully keep it here, I don't know. But I've been trying to figure out what the correct routes are with WESD and ArcLight.
Would you guys keep the board posted on that?
Absolutely.
It'd be great to have it and use the parts and.
Or if they could reprogram and get a second one, that would be nice too. If they could utilize the parts and put a new system on it for the same.
So administratively, everybody is wanting quote number 1 from ArcLight.
If that, the person from industry, a lot of shop class are utilizing, that's the one he's utilized. And the fact that ArcLight said, hey, we've got 2, we got our Cadillac and we have our Chevy, the Chevy's what you guys need. Here's why, I respect a company that says that.
Yeah.
And I think that they, again, wanna work with schools and get kids excited about opportunities with that, and it gets us up and going on something that's been long overdue. And so I would definitely move that we look at that again from the recommendations that Kirk has received and that I've received from Kirk. I think that's the route to go.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the Arc Pro Ultra 4x4 in the amount of $17,752.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Can I come use it before school's out?
Hey, I do have one question on the warranty. On the second quote, it does have warranty, but I just don't see it on the first. Is there?
I will clarify that
Okay.
with the salesman. I believe that everything about the warranty of the machine was the same. It was, one had a child-proof system to run it, and the other one had more of the engravers and other useful tools on it.
Okay.
So I believe there was supposed to be a warranty on both of them, but I will double check.
It also, the date for the quote was February 28th, and it says it's only good for 30 days. Are we sure it's still good?
Yes.
Okay.
He keeps calling me like every week. Have you got approval yet? Can we buy it yet?
Okay.
That'll be a good email.
He's doing great, which also means that the quotes are still good if he wants to
Well,
keep it.
I made the motion for that dollar amount, so if it's more, the motion doesn't work.
Okay, so we'll move to item 7, patron inputs. Anybody want to speak? No? Okay. Move to 8, board comments. Comments? No, okay. Item 9, announcements, dates of importance.
Yeah,
Let's make
so
sure our budget committee meetings are in times.
I saw the 12th, by the way, yes. So, for a second, so on, we have a science club trip going on right now, the budget meeting we had earlier today. Outdoor schools next week, with our 6th grade class. And then our kindergarten roundup is coming up very quickly on, May 1st. So far, we have not heard that there's a lot of in-district kinders, which is, I think we had about 7 that we know of. Is that correct? In-district kinders? Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's, so that's interesting. There may be some room there for some others, but plant sale coming up on the 7th and 8th, 2:30 to 6:30. And then on the 12th, we have that second budget meeting, as you see there. Prom coming up on the 17th. And then we have that next board meeting on the 19th.
And there is a budget meeting on the 19th,
As well,
Also.
yes.
the third one. Yeah,
Yeah, 6 o'clock.
at 6 o'clock.
And the
Where's
PPC
prom?
auction is on the 3rd.
Where's prom at?
I could, on here, let's see. It is.
Okay, then we will adjourn at 8:05.
I call it back around.
We all
Little Peter French. Yeah, that's good.